Good morning. Nice to see you all. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "I have decided to stick to love. Hate is too great a burden to bear." And that's about the bottom line of the subject of love. Not loving our fellow human beings is and has been really too great a burden for mankind throughout history. And it's too great a burden for any of us today as a society and as individuals. Untold suffering has been the result. It's imperative that we not only evolve past hate, but that we learn to love, to save ourselves and to save our world. And it should be easier these days, too, when you really think about it. We have a greater and greater understanding of psychology, of human history, of human nature, of history in general, that serve to help us know that ultimately there really is nothing to hate about anybody out there. In fact, there's a lot to love in every human being, everyone. And by that, I mean true agape love. The ability to understand and to have compassion for people, including ourselves. We're one of those people. We actually no longer have the luxury of not understanding and having compassion for others. We just don't have that luxury anymore. There are 7.9 billion people on planet Earth. In 1957, there were 2 billion people. I recently read, I didn't check this out with Scopes, but it was from a super reliable source, but that there are more people on Earth today, right now, than have ever lived in the history of mankind, all totaled. Think about that. We've got to evolve and learn to get along. And it's we here at Unity and people like us all over the world who must lead the way in that. Spiritually, mankind has taken 3 big steps. For thousands of years, if someone hurt someone in one tribe, the other tribe would come in and completely annihilate his whole tribe. Then about the time when Jewish law and God was taking hold firmly, mankind took another major spiritual step forward. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The one person who transgressed against another paid the price and not the whole tribe. Then with the advent of Jesus, the 3rd step was taken. Turn the other cheek. That means forgive. That step was taken over 2,000 years ago. It's now time for another one. Evolving into beings who are capable of understanding and having compassion for all people. No exceptions. Fortunately, there are more and more of us who want love and peace all over the world, and we must join together and lead the way. As we talked about last week, we often need to look deeply into the reasons why we and others can't love some individuals or groups, and then work on solving those issues. What do those whom we don't like trigger in us exactly? What is it about them that bothers us? That's what needs to be healed first. Then we can be free of the effect of others and just observe what they're doing, maybe how it's affecting us. We always, of course, need to set boundaries and protect ourselves, but we need not be bothered emotionally by all their stuff. In fact, we can do better to protect ourselves in society if we're not emotionally involved. This frees us to appreciate others and to develop our understanding and our compassion, and thus become the enlightened beings that we were all meant to be. We say the Lord's Prayer every Sunday here, and most of us say it every day. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Thy will is God's will. And it's pretty clear what that will is, the eternal wisdom of the universe. Great spiritual leaders have shown us the importance of loving everyone, not just those who conform to our programming or maybe our ego needs. And the payoff for that is that we will transform into our highest selves, capable of miraculous levels of joy and peace. Now, Mother Teresa didn't withhold her love and care from people who weren't perfect. She saw them all as God's children. Jesus spent time with sinners. He was able to see past their sins to their inner core, which is divine for all of us. And we can too. And we'll be a lot better off when we do. Jesus said, "These things I do, ye shall do also, and greater." All spiritual teachers have taught this, that the point of their teaching is that we too can and should live as they did. And if we do, we too will be able to manifest heaven on earth. God is love. That is the definition of God. Thus, love is all around us all the time. We need to be aware of that so that we can not only offer it, but receive it and be better prepared then to pass it on, as is the unity law of prosperity. Love is out there all over. Just think of how often it's available to us and we just don't see it. The problem is we can't see love very often, even when it's right there in our faces due to our filters. It's sort of like the story of the farmer who was talking to his wife. He was looking into Mabel's eyes and holding her hands, and he said, "Mabel, do you realize you have been by my side every moment? When we lost the whole herd last winter, Mabel, you were right there by my side. Mabel, you were right there when we lost all the crops in the flood. We stood there together as the river rose and over the banks. It started to flood the fields, and you and I together saw the crops and seeds and of all our good that year just being washed away. But Mabel, you were right there by my side. When I got so sick that I went to the hospital and the doctor said I was getting worse and I had to be operated on, you were right there. Then I went home for a while and had to go back and be operated on again. But Mabel, you were right there. When we lost the farm because we couldn't pay the bank, Mabel, you were right there, always right by my side." And Mabel, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've been thinking and thinking about this. Mabel, I think you're bad luck. We often miss seeing the love that is right there in our faces. The Course of Miracles says that every action is either one of love or a cry for love. We've all seen kids who act out. Well, adults act out too. We sometimes miss out on love by rejecting others. We just think about how many people in the world there are, those 7.9 billion. Just think about them for a minute. Statistics have shown, though, that over 40% of our population, 40% of those people, of those 7.9 people out there, are lonely. I'd like to tell you another more serious story, a true one, about a man named Bill Fisher. When Bill was in ministerial school in 1952, he was in a class that taught all about love. They were told to love everyone, unconditionally, everyone in the world. May Rowland was the director of the prayer ministry, and she was teaching the class, and she told them that if anyone had a problem, just to start with right there in that class, if they had a problem loving anyone, to come see her. Well, Bill Fisher went to see her. Bill said, "There's one person in the ministerial class that I can't stand. There's nothing, absolutely nothing about this person that I can like." May said, "Go back, take a week, look over his entire life, find something that you like, and then come back." Well, he took a week and a half. He came back and he said, I'm really sorry, May. I've looked over this person's life, and there is absolutely nothing that I can that I can stand about this person. May said, Bill Fisher, you go back out there, you take another week, look over every detail of his life, and you find just one thing that you like. He came back in a week. May Rowland looked at him directly in the eyes. He came in the class and said, okay, what do you like? Bill said, May, I like his fancy silk tie. And May said, then go immediately and tell this man that you like his tie. So Bill Fisher went over and he told the man, I really love your tie. At that moment, the man loosened his fancy silk tie, took it off, and gave it to Bill. Bill Fisher loved to tell that story because they became very close friends for the rest of their lives. This was the beginning of a powerful, lifelong relationship. Jesus Christ's great mandate was given after he had gone down on his hands and knees and washed his disciples' feet. And he said to them, a new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another. He clearly meant that we must love all of God's children, regardless of race, color, creed, hang-ups, issues, or family problems or faulty programming, no matter what it is. Everyone is worthy of our love. That is our understanding and our compassion, and sometimes our attention and our care. Ironically, if we really understood them, it wouldn't be difficult. It's a process. It's not easy, but it helps to remember that every single person is a child of God. We are all one. It also helps to know that it's a spiritual, psychological, and political imperative if we are to survive this life without suffering, personally and around the world. And for we Unity students, it's helpful to remember that it's one of the 5 Unity principles. Unity was founded on these 5 principles. The second one says, people are good. The reason for this principle is that Unity believes that our essence is of God. Therefore, we are all inherently good. We are spiritual beings. The Spirit of God lives within each person. Therefore, all people are inherently good, even if they're acting out. So, what's not to love? Usually just some personality quirk, maybe some bad upbringing, bad conditioning, maybe a chemical imbalance. The Bible says, whosoever shows his love for the least of these shows his love for God. This God principle is the oneness of all life principle. We are all one. That person you dislike is really you on a deeper level. The fourth Unity principle that followers of Unity live by is action is needed. What this means is that knowing and understanding the laws of life, also called truth, why we have truth lessons instead of sermons, is not enough. Just understanding won't do it. A person must live that truth through thoughts, words, and deeds. We must live this knowledge that we have and love one another as I have loved you pretty clearly states what we need to be doing. Charles Fillmore, in his book, The 12 Powers of Man, says, love is the most universally recognized and most frequently misinterpreted of all of the Bible. It is part of life and living, and without love, people perish. And we let love unfold in our lives, or we perish. We will find, if we do, that it opens the door to experiences of good above and beyond anything we have ever thought was possible. Fillmore also said, love is an inner quality that sees good everywhere and in everybody. It insists that all is good. And by refusing to see anything but good, it causes that quality to finally appear in all things. That is the peace that passeth all understanding. There's a wonderful story about a couple, Dan and Kathy. They put up a hummingbird feeder in their backyard. They had high hopes. It was the hope of build it and they will come. They put up the hummingbird feeder and they waited and waited. Finally, one hummingbird came the first year. Then the second year there was another. Another hummingbird came and went just as the first one had. Then the third year, they looked out one morning and they were absolutely overcome looking at their backyard. It was like a spiritual experience because 4 hummingbirds were on that feeder at the same time. Ordinarily, hummingbirds flutter their wings very fast as they're feeding. They never really land, they just keep on fluttering. They feed often because they need the food for their high energy, moving their wings. But these 4 hummingbirds were all sitting peacefully on the feeder. Not only were there 4 hummingbirds sitting there in total harmony, but also there were 4 places on the feeder where they could all get food. Every once in a while, the birds would hop around the rim of the feeder, changing places. They would hop in unison around the feeder, all taking equal turns at the various feeding spots. The harmony went on for several weeks, and then there was a dramatic change. A bully hummingbird started to swoop in and fly by, making noises and scaring away the original 4 hummingbirds. This bully hummingbird would spend so much time trying to take over and defend his place that none of them were being fed, not the bully and not the other 4. The bully bird just didn't have time to eat. When he did, he would only be able to feed for a couple of seconds, and then he would expend all of his energy defending his spot. Very soon, none of them were able to eat the food that was there for all of them. Those hummingbirds are a symbol for humanity. We must become more peaceful and loving as societies and as individuals if we are to survive well. Otherwise, we'll be like that 5th hummingbird and rob ourselves and everyone else of much peace and joy and abundance. It's time to evolve. It's time to treasure and love each and every person, starting with ourselves. Some may choose to understand and have compassion from afar. No problem. But for your own sake and for the world's, do so. Work on developing your understanding of everyone and your compassion toward them, even if it's from afar. You are divine. You are lovable, regardless of your little programmed personality that acts out sometimes like everyone's does. And everyone else is divine and lovable too, regardless of their conditioning and their acting out. I'd like to call to your attention to the program, if you all would look at the pullout in your program, and to the letters that spell Valentine's. They summarize the main ideas of the critical truth lesson on love and last week's, which basically discussed why it's difficult for us to love sometimes. We have a guest speaker next week, so this is my Valentine to each of you. V, value and love yourself as you love and value others. Don't forget this one. It's so important. If you don't love and value yourself, it's really hard to value others. A, admit why you can't love and own up to your part in it. What do these other people trigger in you? Those are the wounds, like we talked about last week, that need to be healed and can be. L, love is the answer, period. It's the answer to everything. E, End judging, prejudice, and unforgiveness, mainly for your own sake, but for the whole world's. N, never assume that someone is unlovable. Remember the ministerial student who couldn't find a thing he liked about his fellow student, and then when he gave him his lovely tie, there was that bond for life. T, turn to God for help. Help seeing others differently. It's hard to do on our own because our egos have firm ideas about the way others are supposed to be. Turn to God. Ask to help see that person differently. I, inquire. Don't take others' actions at face value. Sometimes there's a really good reason behind it. N, notice when you give love and be really proud of yourself. Pat yourself on the back. E, enter a pact with someone and learn to love together. We've got a beautiful spiritual Sangha here. The Sangha is the brotherhood and sisterhood of others on our spiritual path. Join with someone else. When you're having a problem, trust them, talk to them, get some help from them. S, start loving today. There's no time like the present. And we here at Unity really are capable of that. We've got so many tools. We've got each other. It's time to start. So, happy Valentine's to all of you. We have a guest speaker next week and the following week, 2 wonderful people. But I wanted to make sure that you all knew that you were very loved for Valentine's, and you are. Thank you. Amen.